right.
That was exciting.
Very excited to have everybody
now. Something exciting is going to happen.
Absolutely, right? Countdown to the fun, right? So welcome to the stream. Very excited to be chatting today with BB King, good friend, and excellent pen tester. We're going to talk a little bit about his class that he has put together, the Modern WebApp Pentesting. We're going to host that class this year at Hackers Teaching Hackers. All right, so let me just say I'm going to bring up the site for that and show people a little bit about the conference. Here, there we are. All right, so Hackers Teaching Hackers, it is held November 1st to the 4th this year it's just outside of Columbus, Ohio. People are familiar with Columbus. The venue itself is actually in Canal Winchester. But the first and the second will be 2 days of training. On November 3rd, we'll have a day of villages. And then on the 4th, we'll have a full lineup of talks. And we're going to be announcing the speakers and all of that pretty soon here. So keep an eye out for that. This is the site, so you can come out to register for tickets. We have 2 different training classes. We spoke with Micah Hoffman and Griffin Glenn last week about their OSINT class, which is available. And we're going to talk to BB this week about his Modern WebApp Pentesting class. So excited to dive into that. The agenda for the conference itself, again, there's 4 days. Day 1 and 2 will be the training. We have a couple of the training courses that we're going to get posted to the site this week. So keep an eye out for those as well. So day 1 and 2 will be training. Day 3 is all villages. Now, if you're not familiar with villages, what we do with villages is we set up a whole bunch of different hands-on labs that you can go experience. And the goal is to get them done between 15-30 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, depending on the village. And you'll get some hands-on experience. In this case, we have villages for Active Directory hacking. We have a blue team village, all about doing hands-on blue team activities. Exfiltration and pivoting in cloud serverless services. So there's lots of fun stuff going on there. Hardware hacking, lock picking, a packet village doing packet analysis, purple teaming, and a tamper evident village, which has been one that even the non-technical folks kind of get into that one. So you don't have to be a security expert to come to this. In fact, we really enjoy seeing folks that are newer. But tamper evident is all about looking at tamper evident envelopes and door locks and things like that, and trying to get around those tamper evident controls that we see on a regular basis. So more of the physical security and physical controls. So a lot of fun. And then day 4, all about the talks. We're going to have some keynotes and a bunch of other talks. We've got regular 45-minute talks and then what we're calling tutor sessions, because we're teaching hackers, right? And those are 30-minute sessions. And so essentially 3 full tracks of talks on day 4. So lots of fun. Hopefully we'll see everybody there. Tickets themselves are on sale now. You can buy the OSINT or the Modern WebApp Pentesting class. Again, save $100 with those if you register before September 10th, coming on Saturday here. The code there is earlybird100. Regular tickets are $199. And then with the HTH read only, this is our live stream option. And so we will stream the conference and the talks, and that is $49.
Read only. I love it. That's good.
Nice, isn't it? I forget who came up with that one. I'd give credit if I could, but
it's a good thought, because try as you might with the streaming stuff and the online stuff, it's not quite as interactive.
Yeah. So now we do have a Discord channel that you can join as well. And folks join there. We'll have channels in there for various sponsor levels so that you can interact with vendors in there as well. And we're actually also using the Zoho Backstage platform, which has some other capabilities in there with interacting with the vendors and providing materials and that kind of stuff. So lots happening this year. Very excited to get into it. And our theme this year is Goonies.
Goonies. We were talking about that before we started here. Goonies. Who's ever seen Goonies? It's 1985 is when that came out, John. Is that right?
Yeah, 1985.
So the people, I was just saying, the people just kind of entering the workforce now, we're not like their parents were in junior high when that movie came out. So I wonder if it's like, is it one of those ones that has like stood the test of time and people watch it over and over again and it's still a good movie and they still enjoy it? Or is it something like old people like us look back on fondly and think about, wow, technology, our dreams were so big then?
Yeah, I refuse to admit that I'm old. So
I didn't say that.
I'm young at heart and I enjoy it, so maybe that's good enough, right?
Right. Right. No, they're fun. They're fun. It's fun. I think I like the having a movie theme because you can go watch it, right? If you haven't seen it before, you can go watch it, and then you're like instantly in on all the jokes and all that kind of stuff. It's an easy way,
Absolutely.
I think, to build some community.
Absolutely. And the badge this year, like I don't want to reveal too much yet, right? But with the badge this year, it's actually going to look like one of the artifacts from the movie. So some things will call back to it there, right? As a couple of youngsters have seen Goonies, right? So
Oh, good, Casey. I'm glad you've taken the time to educate yourself on the cultural history of North America. That's great.
that's fantastic. All right. So quick introduction. This is a stream for Hackers Teaching Hackers. I am John Gormflow. I'm the director of speakers and training and also the executive director of the con this year. So excited to be heading that up and excited today to talk to Brian. I'm also the founder and principal consultant of Attack D, recently rebranded from Fundamental Security, if you've heard of that company, but we are now going by Attack D at this point. So very excited to introduce Brian, and I'll let Brian introduce himself here.
Yeah, I'm Brian King, BB King. I'm the author of Modern WebApp Pentesting, the class we're going to talk about here a little bit. I'm a pen tester at Black Hills Information Security. I've been pen testing web applications since about 2008, which is years after Goonies came out, if you're keeping track. I started in 2008. I was the second hire on the security team in the organization I was working for then, and they were hiring because there was this new requirement coming out that was going to apply to banks all over the place. It was called PCI. Maybe you've heard of that. And people love to beat up on PCI and similar regulatory frameworks and things like that. They'll say, "Oh, that's not real security," and I say it is because it's how I got my job. And honestly, those things, it's better to have a checklist than nothing, right? And a lot of those frameworks, they provide a checklist. They give you something to say, no, it says here we have to do these things, and that's your opening to do real security. So I agree, PCI itself, and there is no standard that is 100% real security, but they all give you a foot in the door. They give you a chance to do the things you want to do.
Yeah, it gives us a chance to do what we do, right? Doing the hacking for fun and
Exactly.
right?
Right. Right.
Although I do make the argument when I teach sometimes that ransomware has done more to advance information security than any compliance framework ever.
I think it has. I think it has. You get customers like in the consulting world that you and I are in, you get customers who say things like, well, I don't know why anybody would come after us. We're not a target. We're not a bank. We're not we don't have anything of value. And it's like, well, do you have a computer? Is there stuff on it that you care about? Well, the attacker doesn't have to care. They can either enrich themselves or make your life difficult. Either of those things are good motivations for them. So yeah, ransomware is it's terrible. It's terrible, but it affects people that would not normally be affected, and it does kind of open eyes, I think.
Yeah, it flips the economics of it, right? So like after the Target and Home Depot breaches, the price of stolen credit cards like plummeted, right? So there's an inverse relationship to the size of the breach to then how much somebody can make. And when we look at ransomware, it's quite the opposite, because the only person that has to care about that data is you, right? So there's no supply and demand. If they have a monopoly on your data via encryption, you'll pay what you have to pay to get it back. Sadly.
Right. Yes. Sadly, it's important to note that's sadly. I still think it's horrible, but it's a great argument for backups. We talk about security topics all the time. We never talk about backups, but if you have a decent backup, then ransomware, like especially at home or a small business, like who cares? Just restore your backup.
Yeah.
You got to do it right. They can steal the backups also. So, but it's a good conversation starter. It's good because it's something that anybody can picture happening to themselves. And it doesn't matter what your business is or how extensive your environment is. It's a risk for everybody. So it's a good conversation starter.
Absolutely. Now, we are offering BB's class live at HT Hackers this year. However, you can take it online, and there's live online options as well, if I remember right. And you can see more information about that and other courses out at anti-siphontraining.com. So feel free to check that out in case you can't make the conference itself this year. All right. Now, for training info for the conference, you can head out to hthackers.com/training. That'll redirect you to the training page, and you can see all the details there. All right. Now, let's get to what we actually came to talk about today, right?
All right.
What is the Modern Web App Pentesting class really all about?
Well, there's a clue in the title if you read it carefully, but really it's about the whole hackers teaching hackers thing. That's why I love this conference. That's what I'm doing. I've been doing this since 2008. I do it every day now. That's how I pay my bills, is by doing pen testing. And so I see what's going on in real applications across all kinds of different business industries. In my day job, and I've taken that stuff and tried to pull out the things that I see over and over again and make a class for those things, so that people who are interested in doing the same kind of thing get some exposure to what it really looks like out there in the real world, and some practice, some hands-on. It's a very hands-on class. It is 16 hours worth of content, worth of time. And I think I have 16 labs, maybe 15 labs. So very hands-on, very much doing. I spend too much time in the first bit talking, and I'm trying to get better about that. But the way you learn things is by actually doing them. So I'm trying to make it, I've tried to build it out so that you get a lot of practice with the tools, with the technologies, with the vulnerabilities, so you can see what they look like, so you can recognize them when you get to testing actual live applications.
Nice. So then, I mean, obviously there's a lot of web app pen testing classes out there, right?
Yeah.
Why did you write this one?
I wrote this one because I felt like all the other ones got it wrong, right? And that's, why do you do anything, right? I feel like there's kind of this division in web app pen testing classes in particular. There's like the introduction classes, and then there's like the advanced classes. And the trouble I see with those is, if you're a practicing pen tester, you might be a little bit self-conscious taking an introductory class. You might feel like, oh, I should already know that stuff. I'm going to have a hard time going to my boss saying, you've been paying me for a year to do this work. It's time I took an intro class. Doesn't, hard to sell that one. And then the advanced classes, for web apps in particular, what I've seen in those is that they're not so much testing, advanced skills or advanced exploits. They're testing like very specific corner cases that are interesting and that work well as lessons. So it's not so much advanced as it is, we're assuming the basics, yes. So in that sense, it is advanced. But there are a lot of very corner cases that you don't see very often. They're fantastic for CTFs. They're great to actually learn and to get your hands on the keyboard and to see how things work. But the kinds of vulnerabilities I've seen presented in advanced web app classes, I don't see them very often in the real world. So I'm trying to kind of hit that middle ground there, where we do cover fundamental things. People who haven't done pen testing before are welcome and encouraged to come. I do it to get more people into the industry. We need more people in the industry, and it's up to us to do it, really. I mean, the whole hackers teaching hackers thing. Have you thought about, like, people go to college now and they get a degree in cybersecurity, and practicing pen testers that I know, most of them will look at that and go, I'm not sure what you've learned in that class. I don't know how you can have an accredited course in a 4-year program where you're learning things that are still relevant by the time those 4 years are over. So I'm trying to fill that gap. I'm trying to get more people into testing, and I'm trying to make it accessible. We cover, it's called Modern WebApp Pentesting, because it does cover some things that I've seen more recently that we didn't used to have. There's we build up to it. By the end of the class, there's a lab on WebSockets, which is an asynchronous back and forth communication between the browser and the server. And we have a section on JSON Web Tokens, which is what we use for authentication in APIs most of the time. That's where they're seen most often. And we use those as an excuse to dig in deep. For the JWT lab, is to dig in deep on how do you research something like that, and how do you make sense out of something that looks at first glance to be just a bunch of noise. And WebSockets is fun because people aren't testing them. People aren't using them very much. And there's still plenty of room there for vulnerabilities that when you find them in WebSockets, you will say, oh my gosh, that is so simple. How could they make that mistake? Because people aren't spending time on it. So that's why I wrote it. I wanted to fill the gap between advanced and beginning, and get more people into the industry, get more people helping out, so we can make these things better. So we have less ransomware, less successful ransomware, that kind of thing in the future.
Absolutely. Anything to get rid of ransomware, right?
Right.
It really is. It's just such a sad state. But then web apps ends up being that avenue in a lot of times for the attacker in one form or another, whether it's just enumerating information from sometimes real simple vulnerabilities to full access to other things, right?
Right. It's certainly the part of any real criminal activity. They're going to look at the web apps, and it's one of the reasons they do that is the same reason why you can do it too if you want to be a tester, is because you already know how to use a web browser. If you want to test like a Windows network, you have to know how Windows works. You have to set up a domain controller. You have to set up groups and all those things. And if you don't know how to do that, you could figure it out, yes, but the way you figure it out might not be the way it's actually done in practice by professionals who actually know what they're doing. So getting started in pen testing, web apps is the way to go. It's the easiest slope to get into it. You can download vulnerable systems and run them on your own machine. You don't have to get permission from anybody or worry about malicious traffic leaving your network. They're a great place to begin.
Nice. Well, with that in mind, then who should take the class? I mean, beginners, advanced. It sounds like a kind of a mix, or
it is kind of a mix, and it's almost hard to say that. People always question, well, really, how can you have one class that's good for beginners and advanced people at the same time? And it's a good question, and the answer is it's very difficult. But the answer for web apps really is the first day, the first 4 hours or so. So that'll be half the day for this class. We're doing it in 2 days. Is focused on the technologies that make up web applications. I think I see a lot of folks that come into the industry and they've skipped over that part. Maybe they didn't start as a developer. Maybe they've never written their own web application and had to troubleshoot those things. So the technologies that underpin web apps are not necessarily well understood by folks who are just getting into this, even people who've been practicing for a long time. If you start talking about HTTP methods and HTTP request headers, and how do you indicate the end of a request header, and what does URL encoding really mean? Why do I have to do that? Which characters need to be encoded? Which characters can I encode if I want to? All of those things are easy to gloss over. It's easy to be a successful, pretty good tester without knowing those things. But if you do know those things, if you understand how the web browser works, how there's a stage where the browser downloads the HTML and it parses the HTML and it sets aside the JavaScripts and it sets aside the style sheets. And then after it's done processing the HTML, then it goes back to do those things and it passes whatever looked like JavaScript to the JavaScript interpreter. And then it runs and does whatever it's going to do. Once you understand those things and how they work and really get it into your system, you'll see why certain vulnerabilities exist and why certain things that look like they're vulnerable would never work in that situation, because maybe the JavaScript interpreter doesn't get called in that case. So I go into the fundamentals of the web technology. So HTTP, JavaScript, what else? There's 4 of them. I can't remember what them all. HTTP, JavaScript, HTML, and number 4, which is the mystery item, which we'll talk about in class. So anybody who's familiar with using a web browser and who is interested in the security of web applications, either as a tester or as a developer or as a QC person, a quality assurance tester, pen testing web apps it's just QC testing, except we're looking for a specific kind of defect, right? A different kind than you're looking for in QA. So if you have a QA background or if you have a web development background, you are you've got the perfect history to come into this class and start learning how to attack web applications. You'll understand a lot of the things I'll be talking about in the fundamentals, that first little bit of the class. And then we apply them throughout the rest of the class. The other 3/4 of the class, we're applying those and seeing how they actually come into play there. The reason I do that is because it's kind of like the anti-advanced class. They're not corner cases. These are all fundamental things that no matter what comes up next year, we're still using HTTP, right? We're still using HTML. We still have a web browser. All of those things, they're still using URLs. All of those things are going to be relevant for as far as I can see into the future, no matter what we do with web applications. So it gives you a foundation that you can build on. You can go do your advanced things after that, your corner cases, your cool CTF-y type things after that, and they'll be easier for you because you'll understand the fundamentals and why things work the way they do.
Yeah, and honestly, that's one of those things that I see people miss all the time. Is they want to jump straight into the most advanced hacking stuff they can do, and because they heard there's money in it, they want to play the rock star, whatever it is, and they kind of skip those real basic fundamental things of Okay, yeah, you downloaded CSS and JavaScript and images and fonts and all this stuff. What order those get processed in the browser, right? And some of the details that it matters a lot when you get into it. And
It does.
I don't think I really cared about some of those details until I started trying to hack it, right? And so I don't care what drives people to learn it, but you do need to stop and learn it though. And having a class like this is just fantastic for folks to be able to dig in like that, right?
I think so. That's exactly it. There was one case I remember specifically. I was working with another tester, and he found what looked like a cross-site scripting vulnerability. So that's where you send a JavaScript up, and it comes back down to the browser as a JavaScript, and then it executes. And then if that works, then the attacker can do anything in the JavaScript that the website itself could do. And he's looking at the traffic, and what comes back down is a perfectly formed JavaScript, and it shows up in the web browser, but it never executes. And he said, well, why isn't this working? I'm doing everything right. Am I encoding it wrong? Is there something? What's the problem? Well, the problem was it never got sent to the JavaScript interpreter. It was an API call. The response was, it was a script, but it was embedded in some JSON. And that stuff isn't treated the same by the browser as other things. So it looked right. The vulnerability scanner said, hey, cross-site scripting, 100% certain that it's there. And, it wasn't actually there. It didn't actually work.
Yeah. So, I mean, we've probably covered a few of these topics as we've kind of discussed the course and who should take it, why you wrote it. But what specifically are people going to learn and take away from this at the end of the course, and what can they, put to work when they get back to work after that?
Well, there's a couple. There's the technical things that you'll learn, of course. You'll learn how those technologies work and how a web browser works and why some of those vulnerabilities exist and what protections there are against those things and how to notice signs when you're browsing the application of where there might be vulnerabilities. But fundamentally, you're going to learn the fundamentals, and you're also going to learn that you can do this. That there's a methodology that I present for testing web applications, and it's one of my hobbies is to go look at people's methodologies for pen testing because everybody has a different way of doing it. Everyone sees things differently, so it can be helpful to see what somebody else's methodology is. Like, oh, maybe I'm skipping something. Maybe I should steal something from theirs and start doing this way. But my method, it's easy to get bogged down in the details. My methodology, which I will teach you, and I'll tell you right now, my methodology, it's a two-step methodology. Step one is to figure out what the application is supposed to do by clicking around, submitting the forms, filling stuff in, signing up for an account. And then step two is to figure out what it actually does. So it's supposed to allow you to log into your own account. But what it actually does is it asks for your username and a shared secret. And if those match, then it lets you in. And that's different. It's not the same thing. It's always different. The conceptual thing is always different than the actual thing. And it's in that gap between the concept and the reality that the vulnerabilities show up. So I'll help you to see those types of things. There's a tennis player. His name is Arthur Ashe. He was a tennis player, and it was 9 years before Goonies. He was the world's best tennis player. I wasn't watching tennis at the time, but he has a wonderful philosophy that is he plays tennis like I do pen testing, and it's three things. It's start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can. That's it. And every time you use something, you move to a different place. Every time you learn something, you move to a different place, and now you can do things you couldn't do before. So I hope that you come away from the class with some confidence that you can do that no matter where you are, you know something, and you can move forward from where you are, even if it's a tiny step. And often that's good enough. Actually, I much prefer when new testers come on when they take small steps rather than big leaps, because those big leaps, you miss things. You skip over stuff. It's the smaller steps, the more methodical folks that tend to be more successful in here. So I hope you learn that this is something you can do if you're interested in it. And I give you some tools to help be successful in that. I actually have one gift. I have this sticker. This is, it's the world's only useful laptop sticker, as far as I know. It's an ASCII chart. So it lets you encode and decode characters for URL encoding and HTML encoding. I put these stickers on my laptops all the time because I can never remember what all the things are, but it's a little tool that helps you encode and decode things as you're going. Just a little something to help keep that in mind.
Nice. Fantastic. Very cool. I'm very excited to get the class running. We ran it last year and had a group of folks, and they absolutely loved it. So looking forward to running again this year and having a room full of people getting into some hacking, right?
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Bring some new people into the fight, which is always a good thing. Now, I mentioned at the start of the stream here that we do have an early bird discount that is only good for 3 more days, right? So it ends on September 10th. They'll save you $100 on the registration of the class, right? So please, if you're interested in taking the class, check that out. You can, when you register, use that early bird 100. That does go away on September 10th. So if you want to save that $100, register before then. All right, now, training you can register out at hthackers.com/training, and that'll let you register for the live run of the class at our event on November 1st and 2nd this year. And then if you are interested in the training but can't make it to the conference, which is very sad, we'll miss you. But you can check out Brian and his training and a lot of other stuff out at antisiphon.com, or excuse me, antisiphontraining.com.
Right.
Put that link back up here.
Yeah, those classes, most of them are available on demand also. So if you don't want to take it live in person or online, there's a lot of them have on-demand versions that are available to take at your own pace.
Excellent, excellent. And just for clarification, that $100 early bird code, that only works for HG hackers. That does not work for the anti-siphon folks.
Good point.
Yeah. It's tied to the conference.
Right.
So hopefully we do see everybody there. The training ticket does include a ticket to the conference as well as the training, and we will feed you on both days of the training. You'll get the breakfast and lunch. You'll get breakfast on day 1 of for the villages on November 3rd, and then you'll get lunch and dinner on day 4. So we're excited to get everybody there and see everybody again for HTH.
And it's at a brewery, so you get all the drinks you could want to purchase afterwards. They also have some non-alcoholic beers too, if you want to go that direction. Nanny State, is that the one? Nanny State is the non-alcoholic beer from them.
I think that's right.
Pretty good.
It is. Let me hit the BrewDog. It is that BrewDog, and it is the first, which I think they've opened up several others. They're working on other ones similar. So the
is it their first North American brewery? Because they're a European company, right?
North American brewery, but they claim that it was also the world's first hotel brewery combo. I don't know if they've actually scoured the planet to find that.
Well,
or to prove that out. But
you don't want to miss the opportunity to be there.
No, not at all.
First brewery hotel combo. We've been waiting a long time for that.
That's right. Talk about like achievements of mankind, right? Like it's a big deal. Actually, I've got some decent pictures here on the homepage. We scroll down a little bit. So there's a nice little fountain. The hotel rooms are really cool as well. Each hotel room actually has a shower beer fridge, right? There's taps that you can get in some of them.
A shower beer fridge?
Yeah, hold on, let me get to that picture.
You don't take a shower in beer. That would defeat the purpose.
I can't make it any bigger.
Beer and a shower.
I mean,
there's a beer refrigerator in the shower.
So you can reach out of the shower, grab a beer, and be off and running. Now, over on this one, you can see like there's a guitar in many of the rooms. There's a record player, and you do have a stocked fridge in by your bed as well. So there's beer everywhere at this conference.
Wow! All right,
a lot of fun. A lot of fun if you enjoy a good frosty beverage.
Funny.
All right. Very cool. All right. Well, Brian, thanks so much for taking the time. Enjoyed talking to you, hearing more about modern web app pen testing, and look forward to running a class and hopefully seeing everybody at the conference. Got a couple comments came in here.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. This will be fun. This whole hackers teaching hackers thing. This is this is what it's all about. You complain about the skill shortage, you got to help do something about it. This is the way to do it.
We have very profound comments here from John Harper.
I believe that looks like an image of some sort. An artwork, perhaps. Well, a bunch of non-alcoholic beers. It's not just Nanny State, apparently.
Ah,
Very nice.
fantastic. All right. Awesome. Well, thanks again. Hopefully we'll see everybody at the conference November 1st. And for everybody else, we'll catch you next time around. Thanks again, Brian.
Very good. Thanks, John. Good to be here.
Have a good one.
All right.